This episode of Shaun of the South is brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best way to cure idle hands was to build something, so keep your hands sharp with a case knife. And by WNC Original Music, music of the Carolinas and of the nation. Do yourself a favor and visit WNCOriginalmusic.com and listen to their podcast today. And by Folklore Brewing and Meadery, quite literally the best brew in Alabama. And now let's have a song from Nick Gunnering.
3 weeks on the coast of California, 1 year in the moss of Carolina. I'll write you a postcard, love. Remember the pictures of all those sunny days. Going to Maine this summer. We've been trying to find our train, but there's no runner. Running high, feeling low. I guess I just don't know where I should go. Our bags, oh, and make our way. I feel like we are finally, oh, I feel like we are finally, feel like we are finally going home.
This portion of our program is brought to you by visitnorthalabama.org, the Mountain Lakes Tourist Association. Visit the 16 North Alabama counties that make this state what it is. The Alabama Bass Fishing Trail features 13 of Alabama's premier bass fishing lakes and stretches from the mountains of North Alabama heading south to the Mobile Bay. You might lie awake at night sometimes and wonder if you're a fisherman or not. Well, here's a litmus test for you. It's very easy. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. Look in your refrigerator, and if you see tartar sauce inside or cans of beer, you are a fisherman. Whatever you do, you can do it better in North Alabama, so visit northalabama.org or hashtag visitnorthal.
Clear the air now, 'cause there's something coming through me. I can feel it in my bones. There's a love that wants to roam while these eyes can feel in these words and in my ears, in these musings that she calls to me. I open up to her and she tells me all I need to know. Now she tells me all I need to know. And I never wanna lose this connection to my muse. As she whispers in my ear, she says, baby, have no fear, 'cause you're electric, you're on fire, and it's clear you've got desire. So my love is pulsing through, and I never wanna lose, no, I never wanna lose her touch. No, I never wanna lose, no, I never wanna lose her touch. 'Cause I traveled through the darkness, through the night, and found the light that she was shining on me, oh so bright. Her hands were up, she wants no fight, she just wants my voice to offer up a sound so sweet. Yeah. 'Cause she been singing, but only if you know she could shine a light, a love so bright. She pierced right into you, now she calls me through the darkness, through the night, and she infiltrates my dreams with her ambition. She's so bright, now she tells me all I need to know. Oh, now she tells me all I need to know. And I never wanna lose this connection to my muse. As she whispers in my ear, she says, baby, have no fear, 'cause you're electric, you're on fire, and it's clear you've got desire. So our love is pulsing through. Hey, hey, oh, and I never wanna lose this connection to my muse. As she whispers in my ear, she says, baby, have no fear, 'cause you're electric, you're on fire, and it's clear you've got desire. So our love is pulsing through.
Well, you are listening to Sean of the South, and I'm your host today, Sean Dietrich, and I just want you to know it's a pleasure coming to you live at the podcast airwaves, the radio waves, all over this fine nation, in your minivan or in your home stereo system, Bluetooth speaker, or through the tiny little insignificant speakers of your cell phone. I just want you to know that you could listen to anything. You could listen to something that is kind of good for you, or something that will give you a positive spin on your day, but instead you chose to listen to this. And so you probably will pay penance for it later on in your life, but right now the only penance that you're going to be paying is the grating sound of my voice in your earphones or in your speakers. Depending on how they adjust the bass level of my voice, it could rattle the speakers right out of your car and cause you stereo damage, in which case you can send the bill to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a joke there. I guess when we changed the format of our show just for this part of our season to one microphone and one guy instead of one guy, one microphone, and one audience and a band. It changed the dynamic for me, and I know it's changed it for you if you've listened to us at all. I can't conceive that anybody would want to listen to this thing when it's just me talking into a microphone. For one thing, I am not the same. I'm a different guy. I'm quieter. This is more who I am at home when I'm in my PJs sipping coffee. In this studio here right now, it is 36 degrees outside, and apparently the guys have forgotten to turn on the dadgum space heater. So I'm in here in a jacket with gloves on. It is colder than a witch in a sports bra. That's my family version of that phrase. But I'm supposed to talk about something, and I'm supposed to get all excited and animated, even though there ain't nobody here looking at me except these two yahoos to the other side of the recording glass. So I'm going to try. And I guess what I'm going to talk about is what happened to me yesterday. I was sitting on my porch, and I was with my dogs, and I saw the mail lady come down our drive. We have a mail lady. She's a sweetheart. She drives a beat-up red car, and it matches her personality perfect because she is just laid back, easygoing. She's always got mailboxes sitting in her front dashboard, and her back of her car is just filled with mail parcel of all kinds. And I pass her a lot when I take the dogs for walks and whatnot. And poor lady, whenever she has to put mail in her mailbox, she has to contend with a mailbox that has been beat to hell and back by local boys with baseball bats. We got guys who like to play mailbox baseball. They'll ride up and down the roads, and one holiday last year, I think they got out 27 mailboxes with their Louisville Sluggers. We found a baseball bat alongside Ophelia's mailbox down the road, and we knew who it was because their initials were right there on the bat. So our mailbox has been, it's suffered, and so sometimes it sags, especially when it gets cold. It sags, and she has to contend with putting mail into a mailbox which is pointed toward the ground. So she has to contend with gravity. She fights the fight. The mail people fight a real hard fight. They're out there every day of the year, and they are just like any other delivery person. They are like the newspaper delivery man. I don't know if you ever think about it, but the newspaper delivery man and your UPS delivery man and anybody who delivers anything, they are champions, more than you might know. For a good long while, my mother and I used to throw the newspaper, and my sister, and we would pile into this old Nissan, and we would park in front of this old strip mall, and this truck that was just about the size of the Mall of America would pull up and unload a pallet of newspapers that was about the size of a Ford F-150, and we would roll these suckers in the cold. And it does get cold here in Northwest Florida. It's a oxymoron to say that it doesn't. Misconception, I mean, not an oxymoron. An oxymoron would be to say that, to say something about a witch in a sports bra, I guess. We would wrap these papers, and then we would go deliver them to half of Northwest Florida. And it was hard work. But on Christmas time, we always had this huge edition of the newspaper. It was, Lord, it was so big. I mean, it was like 3 family Bibles smashed side by side. Try rolling that thing up and put it in plastic. People would always put tips out in their mailboxes, or they'd tack them to the flag, and those tips were never much, but they meant so much in your, emotionally. They meant a lot for you to receive just a little token of someone's appreciation. It's just a little token. It just means so much. Well, I was sitting on my porch, and the mail lady came up. She saw me there, so she handed me my mail. And I took it, waved goodbye to her, asked her how her son was doing, then waved goodbye to her. She said her son was doing good, and he's going to get out on parole any day now. She drove off, and I was thumbing through my mail. There was a bill. There was another bill. There was another junk mail. There was something else from Publishers Clearinghouse. I guess they're still alive and at it. And then I caught this weight in my hand. I felt this weight. And I knew that I wasn't holding a letter. I was holding parcel. It's a very different feeling holding parcel than it is holding a letter. You hold parcel, you get excited. You get excitement coursing through your veins because you know there's something in there. You don't know what it is. You don't know if it's for you or, God forbid, for somebody else, or, God forbid, whether your wife ordered something on Amazon. That's a real buzzkill. It could be something for you. There's an old song that used to be on the musical Music Man, one of my favorite musicals, Robert Preston, Shirley Jones, and of course Opie Taylor, Ronnie Howard. And Ronnie Howard runs out into the middle of that little Iowa town, River City, and he sings, "Oh, well, the Wells Fargo wagon is a-coming down the tracks. I wonder what it could be. It could be something special just for me." Golly, I can relate to that. Not only because I had the misfortune of being born a redhead that looked a lot like him, and instead of talking with a lisp like he did in the movie or in the musical, I just was fat. But, everybody has to contend with their cross. Holding a package will awaken some sort of primal thing inside you, this lust for, this greed for things, Well, I opened it up with my pocket knife. I opened it up, and I could tell before I opened it that this was something special. It was about the size of a VHS videotape. When you get a package that size, it could be one of about five things. I can't think of a sixth, but I could think of five. I wonder if kids know what VHS tapes are. Speaking of which, VHS tapes. If there's any kids in your car or any kids listening to your cell phone, I just wonder if they know what a VHS videotape is. There was a time when VHS videotapes were everything. And I mean everything. You could gauge a child's popularity and status in this life by his collection of VHS videotapes. If a child had a room full of these things, this child was well-to-do. He would probably marry very well in his life, or she, and they would have lots of babies, and they would be very, very wealthy and famous, and probably eventually an Episcopalian member of an Episcopalian congregation. If your child had one or two videotapes, then you knew this child was, he was fighting against the odds. If your child had recorded videotapes, these are bootlegged videotapes that had been made by somebody or your parents, recording something off the television like a TV movie or episodes of Love Boat. Well, this child could probably expect to live out the rest of his days in a cardboard box in the city. You could gauge a child's status in this life by the videotapes they owned. I'll never forget when my cousin got the videotape Dumbo for Christmas. Oh, God. Disney videotapes used to come in this plastic kind of a case. Do you remember that? Plastic case that was white plastic and thick and rounded. It was a white plastic video case, and it was always colorful. There was always a big old illustration on the front. Oh, it was great. Dumbo, that was the tape, videotape. And kids came from miles around just to hold that videotape case in their hands for 10 cents a pop. They didn't come around to watch it. They just came around to look at it. It was a Disney videotape. In those days, a Disney videotape was rare. Well, Disney caught on to this, and then they started producing every videotape with that thick white plastic rubber VHS videotape case. That was a big deal when they first came out, a big deal in childhood. But long ago, if you wanted to watch VHS videotapes, at least in my neck of the woods, you had to go to the supermarket, never forget this, supermarket, to rent the VCR. They had VCRs in the back, came in these plastic cases, and you had to rent a VCR for $1 per day, but the video was $2 per day that you would rent to go along with this VCR. I remember when my father would take me in there, and now the VCRs were in the back on top of the shelf amidst the rental movie selections that we had. The rental selections in that dinky little supermarket were pathetic. We only had a few choices that you could rent for your entertainment. We had the complete first season of The Lawrence Welk Show and Porky's Revenge. And if you cared to watch any of these videos, you could rent them and pop them into your rental VCR. And once you had finished them, the hour's worth of entertainment they provided, you hit rewind and you watch them again. This was entertainment long ago. This was how we did it. Oh yes. Oh yes. I'll never forget that. those days. I guess it's I'm really struggling for something to talk about here. I can see the guys in the booth laughing their butts off at me. Well, the only other place you could rent stuff was the library. I spent a lot of time at the library when I was a kid. My mother was a big regular at the library. The first library card I ever got, I was in kindergarten. And I remember she brought me up to the counter. She held me up there. And this little old blue-haired lady, she put this paper card in front of me. We didn't have laminated cards back then. It was paper. And she said, sign your name. And so I signed my name. SEJJMNSSP. Which is not how you spell my name. In fact, my name is Sean, S-E-A-N, and this name has caused a lot of confusion in my life among primarily PE teachers and telemarketers. You can always tell a telemarketer when they call and they try to pronounce the word S-E-A-N. My father-in-law couldn't pronounce my name. Now, it wasn't a matter of not being able to say it. It was just a mind bender to look at S-E-A-N and think that could spell Sean. It makes no earthly sense. It's not phonetically correct. The Gaelic spelling of my name, Sean, has been very unclear to me. I've always wondered where it came from, but it's been very, very unclear to me as to whether it comes from the Irish-Scotch ancestors that I have, or whether my mother named me after 007 James Bond. James Bond, oh my gosh, she loved James Bond. When we would go to the library, she would rent James Bond flicks, and we would watch them while she ironed clothes in the afternoons. She loved James Bond. She loved Sean Connery's interpretation of James Bond. Wasn't all that fond of Roger Moore and whoever the other guy was. He just doesn't even count. And Pierce Brosnan ruined it, if you ask me. Nothing against him. He's a very fine, upstanding person, but he just is not James Bond. My mother was a fanatic for James Bond videos, also Shirley Temple movies, and we loved to watch Abbott and Costello. When we got our first VCR, my mother would rent these videos and we would watch them. Oh, she just loved. She loved to sit down and watch a good movie. My father was a fidgety man sometimes. He couldn't sit still in front of a television long enough without thinking about how the oil had to be changed in the car or how the carburetors had to be cleaned. But my mother, she could sit down, pop popcorn, and she could just watch From Russia with Love all the way to Goldfinger. My money's on that I was named after Sean Connery. That's what I truly think. But then again, I guess I'll never know. I spent a lot of time at the library, though, growing up. A lot of time. The library, in fact, was kind of a holy place to me. Just downright sacred. You could look at a library. You could see all them books and them shelves towering over your head. And you could just feel kind of the same sensation that a lot of people feel when they go to a fine church in Europe, or when they attend a holy site containing a relic, like Mick Jagger's bones, or I'm sorry, Mick Jagger's still with us. I meant to say, Dick Clark's bones. Well, that's how I feel in a library. Still, to this day. I feel so good when I see them books towering over my head. Because every one of them books kind of offers a possibility. And when my father died, when I was a boy, libraries offered infinite possibilities. They were the place that you could go to select your own adventure. And books for me were an escape hatch. And for children who lose somebody at a young age or go through something very, very hard, they will often find something that will help them detach from this world just for a little bit. And books were my escape route. And I would read. Oh, Lord, I would read. I read everything that wasn't bolted down to the floor. I read good books that were supposed to be, considered classics. But mostly I read things that you probably shouldn't admit that you read. These were things like, lowbrow literature, come paperbacks, and they'd been read through several times, and they had a greasy substance on the cover that just kind of came off on your hands, a film, and the pages were just ratty. These were lowbrow westerns and swashbuckling heroes swinging from the masts of square-rigged ships, and espionage, and books about suspense, thriller books, lots of books on toilet humor. Lots of books that were joke books. Love joke books. I could read a joke book and be just happy. And this is how I spent a lot of time. A lot of time. I read books. Read them all the time. Teachers didn't really know what to do with me. I was just one of them awkward kids who needed an escape hatch. I was chubby. I was quiet. I was shy. An escape hatch was a welcome thing in my life. A lot of the teachers thought that I was just kind of a lot to handle, One of my teachers was really good. A lot of my teachers weren't. I remember one of my teachers discovered something about my personality. I was first grade, and she was so astute, this woman, so kind, a pure mother. She was a pure mother. She would play that piano for everybody. Oh, man. We'd sing along to America the Beautiful or This Little Light of Mine. She'd bounce along on the upright piano, a matronly woman with a little ascot on that she'd tuck into her shirt, and this hair that looked like it had dated all the way back to the beginning of the Civil War, and these horn-rimmed glasses. Sweetheart, a true matronly woman, if you ever saw one. Beautiful, inside and out. She discovered that I could pay real close attention in school to whatever she was speaking about if I was doodling with a pen and a piece of blank paper. Thus, every day after that, she would fill my desk with paper blue-lined tablets and pens and pencils and crayons, and she would let me color while she taught her lesson. This was really a breakthrough for me. I would color while she taught her lesson, and I was able to listen closer while I was doing something else. I made the best grades that year that I ever made in my grade school career. Of course, after her, the good grades ended, and my grades plummeted again, because a lot of other teachers, and I say by a lot, I mean all other teachers, thought that doodling was lollygagging in the middle of class. They just didn't understand me, and so a lot of them didn't like me. They didn't like me at all. I mean, they just, to me, or to them, I just was a big old pain in the ascot. And they would just kind of sigh when I came in. Kind of sigh. And that's hard. That's hard. I remember one teacher called me slow. She said that you were slow. Now, back then, the word slow, that 4-letter word, meant stupid. That's what people called other people when they were trying to say that they were intellectually challenged. Slow today probably means a little something else. Probably means that they learn at a different tempo. But back then, slow really really truly just meant stupid. And I believed, after she said that, for the rest of my life, that I was in fact a slowpoke human being and probably leaned a little bit on the stupid side. What a ride of emotions I'd been through. I'd gone through this moment where I was, allowed to color in class. I was creative. She'd hang my pictures up on the chalkboard, and she thought I was smart, and she thought I was clever, and then I was slow. I was stupid. Well, that one word sticks with you. There were 4 slow kids in our entire school. These were kids who attended something called remedial class. Remedial class was for the village idiots, and that was us. Now, at least this is how we thought. This is what we thought back then. In the remedial class, there were 3 kids from my class. And every day at 8:30 a.m., Miss Shields would come along and she'd pop, pop, pop on our door. And we'd get up and we'd follow her down the hallway to the remedial classroom. 3 kids. There was John. He was about 6 foot tall in the 5th grade. He was taller than anybody else in school. Huge. He was our age. And his mother packed 2 lunches in his lunchbox for school instead of just 1. He was big. He was a real good athlete. But he was in remedial class. And there was Allie. Allie was Native American. Sweetheart. Tender soul. Barely would say a few words to you, but she was so sweet. A little bit chubby, just like me. And in that class was me. Little old, red-headed, curly-haired, buckshot freckles. Me. And I would go with them to this little dingy remedial classroom, and God bless Miss Shields. She would try to teach us our lesson, but she would speak to us like we were hard of hearing. And I know that woman wasn't trying to be ugly. She was just doing what she thought she needed to do. And sometimes that makes it a whole lot worse, if you ask me. And so it comes as no surprise to you that when I reached 7th grade, I dropped out. I dropped out gladly. You bet your bell bottoms I dropped out. After my father died, I had the opportunity to get out of school. And I did. Now, I regret it now. I regret it. It's maybe one of the biggest regrets of my life. You can do things in that tender young age that you'll regret forever. I regret it. But I never quit reading. I never stopped reading books. There are entire swatches of my life spent with a book in my hand, and I'm not exaggerating. There's a picture of me and my mother and my sister, and I am a 14-year-old boy, and I'm reading at Disney World. We're pictured there at Disney World, and inside my right hand is the paperback novel Sphere by Michael Crichton. What a dork. But I always read. I read more than some of my friends, more than most of my friends. I read sometimes 3 books a week. If it rained, and it was the kind of a week where you'd be stuck inside, sometimes 5 books a week. I read until my back hurt, my neck hurt, my eyes got blurry. I loved to read. I truly did. Not because I was smart, but because when you don't go to school with other kids, you kind of have to do something to prove to yourself you're not slow, which is what I was told I was. Well, I read and I read and I read, and I enjoyed to read. It became a real solace for me. I could get in a chair and I could escape way, way off into provincial France, or I could go all the way to the deep south, the old deep south. I could be a superhero. I could be in a spaceship. I could read a book, I'll never forget a book I read, about what could happen if all the electronic devices in the world just quit working. We had to limp along and suffer along just like the old pioneers did. Loved it. I mean, it was a mediocre book, but I loved the idea. Yeah, I could read. I could read and be whatever or whenever I wanted. And well, in many ways, literature and writing saved my life. They brought me back. They introduced me to a world of higher thought, a world of good ideas and smiles and happiness. When I was older and I decided to enroll in college, I was a grown man. Actually, my college career spans a long, long time. I was in college for 11 years, and I am not a PhD. In fact, I am just me. When I got into college, I found that I was not behind. In many areas, I was ahead, except in math, because math, of course, we all know, is invented by the devil. I was okay. I'd kept myself, I guess you could say, somewhat sharp. I guess it's just heavenly mercy is really all it is. I'm not smart enough to keep myself sharp. But somehow, when I started writing, when I started to pen some of the things I was thinking, it always led me to write something about my own life. No writer can sit down and write and withhold himself from writing about his own life. It will creep into everything he writes, but by the time he's really embraced it, he will be writing primarily about his own days, his own existence, and the way he sees the world. And this is what I was doing. Well, about 2 years ago, I started to write, to work on a memoir. Now, I'm not old enough to write a memoir. I don't have nearly the experience to make anything I write valuable to the greater human experience. I probably shouldn't be doing it, but I did it anyway, and it felt good. I wrote about a kid who grew up and went through some tough stuff, whose mother would watch VHS videotapes while she ironed in the afternoons. A kid who learned how to see himself in a different way than a disgruntled teacher once saw him. A teacher who saw him as less than. And I wrote down this little old memoir. And that day that I was sitting on my porch I was telling you about, after my mail lady dropped off the mail, once I got that little cardboard package open, the first thing I saw was that little four-letter name, S-E-A-N, that misunderstood, mispronounced name, Sean. Wow. It was on the cover of a paperback memoir, and I rubbed my thumb across it, and the cover of that book started to develop these little wet polka dots, and I just looked at it. And do you know what I wish more than anything, holding that little book in my hands? Do you know what I wish right now? Well, here's what I wish. I wish that somewhere out there in the world, maybe in a dark, dingy, remedial classroom somewhere, there's a kid who hears this. A kid who realizes that no matter what anybody says about you, or how slow you are, or how you ain't like the others, I hope that kid realizes they all flat wrong. Because this guy thinks that kid is 007. Thanks for listening to Sean of the South. Been your host today, Sean Dietrich, and it's been a bona fide pleasure, if I do say so myself. This episode was brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition in my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best cure for idle hands was to build something. So keep your hands sharp with a case knife. That music heard by me today was Nick Gonering, an inspirational folk artist from Asheville, North Carolina. His music is a reflection of his own personal journey through life and centers around the heart. Do yourself a favor and visit nickgoneringmusic.com, GONNERING nickgunneringmusic.com. To find anything more about what I do, you can visit SeanOfTheSouthShow.com, and there you can find archived episodes dating back to our very first episode all the way to this episode, which you just heard, though I don't know why. You must have terrible taste in podcasts. While you're there, I hope you take the time to drop me a line. Tell me about your birthday announcements, wedding invitations, and potluck socials, because I love to hear from my friends. And speaking of friends, whenever you feel down and out, remember, you are up and in. Adios.